Hello, and welcome to this weekend episode of Views of an Outsider, Parenting Our Children, Parenting Ourselves, Part 1. Parental Roles. Parenting another human being is perhaps the greatest responsibility that there is in this life. You are taking on the responsibility of everything that is involved in shaping another human life. But there is no grand consensus on the right way to go about doing this. Ask 100 different people and you will get 100 different answers. There are parenting books galore, but they all contradict each other. The experts haven't really proven to be that much help either. Many of them have made things worse and more confusing for parents than they already were. In many cases, those experts have done more damage than the number of success stories that they have created. But is that the result of a flawed premise? Or were the parents just incorrectly implementing a good method? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the pressure to get it right is indescribable. But if doing this job perfectly isn't possible, failure is likewise not an option. There is an additional complication for many people out there in that they weren't lucky enough to have good parents themselves, so they have no personal role models to emulate. And even for the people who were lucky enough to have good parents, no one on the planet had perfect parents who did everything right all of the time. No matter how loving they were and how devoted to caring for us to the best of their abilities, every parent screws up their kid in one way or another, just as they were screwed up by their own parents. So does that mean that we're all doomed? When it comes to falling short of perfection, yes. But when it comes to living with the damage that has been done to us, no. And what is more, even though we will all make mistakes as parents, we certainly don't have to pass all of that damage on to future generations. We can choose to set about giving ourselves what we never had. We can try to fill the gaps in our lives by reparenting ourselves. That is where Jordan Peterson's new parenting series comes in. I found it fascinating and extremely practical. And even though the advice that it contains is meant for parents and soon-to-be parents, perhaps there are also some insights that we can glean when it comes to the best way to set about parenting ourselves. Out of all of the experts that are out there, I think that Jordan is the one that it makes the most sense to listen to. As a world-renowned psychologist, he's highly trained and qualified. He has also walked the walk and successfully raised 2 kids who have not only thrived in their own lives, but they still continue to have voluntary, healthy relationships with their parents now that they're adults, which is basically the end goal of parenting, and one that every parent hopes to achieve. Even though with 1 in 4 young people going completely no contact with their parents, it seems like fewer and fewer people are succeeding on that front. To top it all off, Jordan's advice has worked for thousands of people who've tried it. With a resume that has all 3 of those selling points, you really couldn't ask for more when trying to decide who to trust. Jordan's first episode was about parental roles. Everyone, including Jordan, acknowledges that parenting is the most challenging thing that anyone can do. Children can be annoying, exhausting, infuriating, and even cruel at times. But they are also wonderful, open, loving, innocent, and curious little creatures that are so rejuvenating to be around that it borders on being magical. We used to be able to intrinsically understand that both of these realities were true at the same time. But it is often only the first message that is being spread these days. Likewise, when it comes to setting about the business of helping yourself grow and mature into the person that you truly want to be, it is often a difficult, time-consuming, and at times painful process. And perhaps most discouraging of all, it can seem like you aren't making much real headway. But the benefits of growing and maturing from a limited and unhealthy existence into a full and prosperous life is a transition that opens up an abundant world of blessings that will indisputably outweigh the temporary discomfort and sacrifices that have to be made to get there. Parenting, whether done for the sake of another or for the sake of one's own self, is the most worthwhile task that you can devote yourself to. You are either shaping the entire world of a vulnerable little person into something that is good, or you are shaping your own world into something that is a better experience for yourself. What could be a higher calling than that? There is also the added benefit that worthwhile pursuits like these are exactly where human beings find their sense of meaning, which is the primary ingredient for producing happiness. Where there is meaning, there is purpose. And as Viktor Frankl pointed out in Man's Search for Meaning, where he quoted Friedrich Nietzsche, he who knows the why can bear any how. Where there is purpose, there is perceived value. That value can sustain us through even the most unimaginable of conditions, as Viktor Frankl personally proved. It is possible to obtain an inner peace and tranquility that runs so deep and is so profound that the ups and downs of life cannot reach it. And that is good news, because parenting has higher highs and lower lows than anything else that you might attempt to do. In order to thrive amid the inescapable chaos of life, we must find a way to take the advice of Marcus Aurelius when he said that we needed to be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. The spirit of parenting is a spirit of voluntary self-sacrifice. You may be choosing to make that sacrifice on behalf of your child or on behalf of a future you. But either way, you are putting in this effort to nurture that vulnerable, immature person despite the cost to yourself, so that you can shepherd them to a richer and fuller experience of life. To succeed in that very worthwhile task, you need to know exactly where you are trying to go. You need to have a very clear goal in mind. You need to have thought through the specifics of what you would like to accomplish, what is possible for you to accomplish, and what is not going to be within your control. That is how you can keep yourself from growing discouraged along the journey. Don't set yourself up to encounter a needless string of failures due to a lack of preparation or a lack of clear vision. That method holds true when it comes to parenting your children and when it comes to parenting yourself. As a parent, ask yourself, what exactly are you trying to do for your kids? What can you actually do for your kids? And what is realistically going to be out of your hands? Now, that last question can be a very uncomfortable one. But the reason that we should ask it anyway is so that uncomfortable blind spot won't do damage along the way and create a lot of messes. But that is exactly what is going to happen if we have the mistaken belief that we are the gods of our kids' universe and we can control everything that happens there through sheer force of will. We also shouldn't make the mistake of believing that we are the god of our own universe, for that matter, because we definitely aren't. And no amount of wanting things to be different will change that reality. A healthy goal for any parent who wants to help their child experience life fully is to help them learn to strike the proper balance between embracing a life that is both responsible and adventurous. The same is true of trying to guide yourself towards a better and more fulfilling life. In order to strike that perfect balance between responsibility and adventure, you need to strike the proper balance between what a mother brings to parenting and what a father brings. So what makes an effective father? And how can you be an effective mother? To answer those questions, you have to really examine the job that is called for in each of those roles. Now, obviously, Every mother and every father is unique, and they bring their own individual strengths and weaknesses to their roles as parents. But I'm not talking about mothers and fathers on the individual level. I'm talking about the role itself. Zoom out and let's take in the broad view, not the personal one today. In the broader sense, a mother's role is to provide security in the present, and the father's role is to provide encouragement to expand into the future. If you are trying to parent yourself, you must first recognize that you need both of these roles in your life and the benefits that they each bring in equal measure. To succeed in providing that for yourself is indeed a tall order, but it is not impossible if you can manage to keep your eye on the big picture. A mother is on the side of who the child is right now, while a father is on the side of who the child could become. That should not be allowed to be a source of conflict. Both of those perspectives are needed. They fit together in a balanced way that covers all of the bases for the child. That dynamic tension is necessary, where you are able to be genuinely happy and grateful for the unique individual that your child is in this moment, while also being able to see and encourage them to grow into the person that they could become. Likewise, you need to be able to show yourself some grace. You need to be patient with yourself. And more than that, you need to be able to arrive at a place where you genuinely enjoy yourself. But at the same time, you also need to be able to see where you have room for growth and improvement. You need to be actively working towards reaching the limits of your potential. Both of these approaches qualify as different varieties of self-care. And when they are both properly done, they are both an expression of love. You shouldn't view one of these modes as being harsh and the other one as being understanding. It is not that one is ambitious and the other is lazy. That is only true when the underlying motives driving the outer actions are unhealthy. When that happens, then the actions also become contaminated. And in the end, the results that you get are just a different version of the unhealthy you that you started out with. It is only when both the father and the mother are acting from a pure parental love, which is willing the absolute best for the child, that the resulting fruit will actually end up being sweet. The mother is sending the child the message that you are lovely the way you are. The father is sending the message that I like you, but you could be a lot more. Both of those messages are good, and those messages are especially good together. When the child ventures out from the mother, he's encouraged by the masculine. Then when he's depleted, he can come back to the maternal and be accepted. That's what a healthy pattern of exploration and seeking security looks like. Now, despite the fact that both parents have their primary role to play, it is a mistake for the mother to always be the nurturer and the father to always be the one who is pushing the child forward. Both parents should attempt to be well-rounded enough to provide both roles for the child to some degree. Likewise, you don't want to become too compartmentalized or too rigid when it comes to your efforts to mold yourself. Otherwise, everything that you are attempting to do will lose its humanity, and that humanity is what makes it real. Without that, it is just a lifeless job that quickly becomes a burden. The role of the mother and the father both rely on their humanity to produce the love that should optimally govern all of their interactions with their children. That love is often expressed in different ways by a father than it is expressed by the mother. But neither way is the right way or superior to the other. After all, both expressions of love meet a vital need within the child, and giving the child everything that it needs in order to thrive is all that matters when it comes to parenting. Parenting should never become a competition between the mother and the father. Mothers express love with cuddles, and dads typically express affection through rough and tumble play. The great news is that the child needs both of those forms of love, and so do you. You need to experience compassion and comfort from yourself. You need security and to be assured that you are loved and welcome. You also need fun and games. You need challenges and rewards and the experience that will teach you that when you do life right, there is more fun had in playing the game than the fun that is had in winning it. For a lot of people, that can be one of the hardest parts of trying to raise a child or trying to raise themselves up. It is not easy to give ourselves permission to re-enter the world of childhood silliness and games when adult responsibilities beckon. How can a mother or father give themselves permission to ignore the pull of the world for a time and have fun with their child without allowing a gnawing guilt telling them that they should be doing something more important, like household chores, to ruin the enjoyment of the moment that is the whole point of playtime? Children themselves are a great antidote for this adult tendency to be over-serious and overly strict. Children see the world anew and with boundless enthusiasm. And best of all, that way of viewing the world is contagious. There is something that is magical about rediscovering that forgotten early version of yourself. That is one of the many valuable gifts that children give us. At this point in his first episode, Jordan offered 2 foundational lessons for mothers to keep in mind and 2 foundational lessons for fathers to keep in mind. So let's see what insights we can manage to glean from those lessons. The first lesson of motherhood is to hold them close, but let them go. You are only going to be a mother of a small child for a very short time, a much shorter time than you realize. You only get to really be this kind of a mother for a very small fraction of your life, a much smaller fraction of your life than you imagine. And only a sliver of that small portion of your life is made up of the most magical time of all, when your child is extremely young. You get a few precious years in Neverland, and they evaporate before your eyes so quickly. Small children tend to have the ability to bend the way we perceive time. While we are in the middle of raising them, it is often such an absorbing job that it can seem as if life has always been this way, and that life will always continue to be this way. But that isn't reality. That isn't true. This precious time is a gift, and one that is already rapidly drawing to an end. It is such a major mistake to not notice how short that time is, so that you can fully appreciate it while it's happening. Your future will have the fewest regrets possible if you understand that and expend the effort to be consciously grateful for the opportunity that you have to care for your children while they are little. You should give yourself the gift of experiencing as much gratitude for that time as you possibly can. The most effective way to do that is to know that being someone who has been given the blessing of those years really is a privilege. Likewise, in your attempt to parent yourself, you have to find the balance between living fully in the present moment and treasuring the now, while also being open to the changes that life will constantly bring your way, and being able to recognize that those opportunities are part of the way that life is meant to unfold. You are only going to be this version of yourself, this age, this healthy, this ambitious, this innocent, for a short period of time. The present you will exist for a much shorter period of time than you think he will. He is not immortal. This present reality that you are experiencing right now is only a small fraction of your life, a much smaller fraction than you imagine. And all too soon, it will only be a memory that is so distant in your mind that it will eventually seem like it happened to someone else. You get a few precious years in the world that you inhabit right now, and you better make the most of them, or that's a recipe for regret. The fact that we are always looking out of our own eyes is also something that tends to bend our perception of time. While we are in the middle of the struggles that we are facing in our life, it is so all-consuming that it can seem as though life has always been this way and that life will always continue to be this way. But that isn't real either, or true. Our time is a gift, and one that is already rapidly drawing to a close. It is a major mistake not to notice how brief our present experiences really are, and to appreciate them while they are happening, because your own future will have the fewest amount of regrets in it if you understand that and put out the effort to be grateful for the opportunity that you have right now to make the most of the possibilities that are contained in your present. Don't miss out on experiencing as much gratitude for this moment in time as you possibly can. And once again, the best way to do that is to pause and know that you are being given the blessing of these years. And having that opportunity is a privilege. Becoming a parent changes your perspectives. It also changes your priorities. Everything that was once so important to you, all the things that you once found so obsessively interesting, are now no longer worthy of your time. There is simply nothing else that you have ever known that will take hold of you like the love that you have for your child. So how do you manage to keep things in perspective? How do you prevent yourself from losing focus on your career? How do you make yourself take the time that is necessary to maintain other relationships when you're so in love with your child? Or just like when you fall in love romantically, is it okay to temporarily sacrifice some of those things for the time being? To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season. Turn, turn, turn. Some things pass through our lives on a very temporary basis. Other things stay for a season. A few things remain there for a lifetime. All of those experiences have their value and purpose. You can't will a seasonal experience or relationship into lasting a lifetime. But that really is okay, because you don't actually need to be able to do that. The only valid regret would be if you allowed yourself to miss those different experiences by never being present enough to appreciate them until they were gone. Life has a way of changing your perspectives too. Your priorities are going to change as you do. There's nothing wrong with that. As you grow and mature, the things that were once so important to you, the things that once captivated all of your interest, will no longer be worth your finite time. We can all find ourselves struggling between trying to maintain our past versus embracing our future. Times of transitions are confusing and often uncomfortable times to try to get through. But looking back, we usually don't remember them that way. We just remember where they took us. And by then, we can't imagine not having shed the skin of our old life. So don't fight too hard against change in the name of keeping things in perspective, meaning preserving a life that doesn't fit anymore. It is okay to let go of relationships that turn out to be seasonal, and to cherish their memories as you pursue the new road that lies before you. It is okay to decide to sacrifice certain things to pursue something else that matters more to you, as long as you've thought it through and are making your choices very deliberately. Like I said, the only reason to really feel regret when something comes to an end, as long as you know that you haven't mistreated anyone, is if you allowed yourself to miss the entire experience by never being present enough to appreciate it until that time was already over. It is healthy to allow your focus to change when you become a parent. A child needs to have an excess of very close contact with its mother for the first several months of its life. It's therefore impossible to give a true infant too much attention. And in similar fashion, the first portion of your journey of growing is going to be the most labor-intensive part. It is going to require the most devotion and focus. And it is okay to give yourself that time and focus. As your child becomes more autonomous and independent, as they begin to do little things on their own, the mother has to pull herself back in direct proportion which mirrors the child's newfound independence. This is often difficult for the mother, because the spirit of motherhood involves the instinct to protect. But a good mother fails. She has to allow her child to become independent and to take risks, and that means that they will get hurt. But it is selfish to rob your child of the experience of life. It is selfish to rob them of their dignity and the joy that they will find in discovering their own competence. Don't allow yourself to fall prey to an Oedipal mother's suffocating love that denies her child the independence that it needs. That is so damaging to your child's life. And it's not good for the mother either. Deep down, we know when we are doing something that is unhealthy. There is an aura of shame in doing something wrong. Even while we tell ourselves that this is what we want, there is a sickening feeling to it. Remind yourself that if it's too cushy at home, they'll never leave. And that might be tempting in the short term, but it is nevertheless a shallow and unhappy experience of life to condemn your child to, and they will resent you for it. We all, likewise, have an instinct to protect ourselves from pain and failure. But as your abilities expand and your successes accumulate, it is important not to stunt your own growth because of your very natural fears. You should continue to reasonably test your limits and keep pushing to see the full extent of your potential. Don't pump the brakes just when you start to get some momentum. Don't self-sabotage. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be reckless. A toddler is not ready to drive a car, and it is not being a good parent to encourage them to try. So, how do you know how far to pull back and how fast to let go? What is the right ratio of protection to encouragement? One good way to determine the answer to that is to take your cues from the child. A parent is a zone of security and predictability and care for a small child. The child uses their mother as a place of safety to reinsure themselves when they are feeling vulnerable. They will come back to their mother for comfort and attention when they need her. Then they will venture back out into the world to interact with the new things that they find there. When they hit an obstacle, they'll retreat back to the island of stability, security, and encouragement that is their mother. The mother anchors the child in this dance between progress and security. And eventually, as this dance expands and evolves, the child becomes capable of living a completely autonomous life which they are able to flourish in. And that, for a parent, is success. But you don't need to fear. If you've struck that balance properly, the child won't leave their mother permanently, because the two of them will have everything that they need in order to establish a healthy adult relationship with each other. And then the mother will eventually be in a position to establish healthy relationships with her children's children. If you're willing to lose your child to the call of their own adventures, you will get them back, because they'll be willing to voluntarily engage with you in an adult relationship. And in that scenario, everybody gets to have their cake and eat it too. And in a way that is healthy. If you are someone who didn't have parents who did that for you, then you will have to learn how to give yourself that safety when you need it. And you will also have to learn when to let go and encourage yourself to try something new, which is often very scary to do. Realize that it is not failure for you to venture out and then retreat, and then venture out again. That isn't an indication that you are regressing or that you are a failure. That is what progress typically looks like. It isn't a linear line. As your abilities keep growing, you will change, and so will the type of care that you need from yourself. But if you can let go of the familiar version of you over and over again with each change, and not hold yourself back or talk yourself into accepting stagnation, then you will find that you'll be in a position to enjoy the new relationship that you get to have with each new, more complete version of yourself that develops. To sum up this first lesson of motherhood, encourage your children to go out into the world so that they can become competent and productive, which will result in their being secure and happy. But also be confident that when the need arises, they will come back to you for the care that only you as their mother can provide. And likewise, know that growth is something that you vitally need in order to thrive. And know that you are absolutely capable of that growth. Be that maternal person for yourself. Confidently cheer yourself on and encourage the present version of you to find out what you are capable of. But understand that insecurity is going to cause everyone to take a few steps backwards, and that is just part of progress's big picture. So don't bully yourself for that. Be that safe island that you can return to when you need to ground yourself and recharge. But don't do yourself the disservice of allowing yourself to permanently retreat into that familiar safety. Listen to the part of you that wants more, and keep venturing forward one step at a time. The second lesson of motherhood is don't worship your child. It's easy to overindulge your child. The love that we naturally feel for them is so strong that we want to give them everything. We especially want to give them the things that we didn't have. But oftentimes we forget to give them the things that we did have, the things that ended up making us who we are. It is so easy to choose to turn a blind eye to the damage that overindulgence actually does to a malleable young child, especially when we so enjoy gratifying our own desires in that regard. But that isn't generosity. That is actually selfishness. Don't teach your child to think that things are love. And don't set them up to see not getting their way as a personal rejection of who they are as a person. Likewise, it is easy to overindulge ourselves too. We can come up with a million reasons to let ourselves off the hook. But that isn't being kind to ourselves in the long run, any more than spoiling a child is somehow loving them. Love is willing the best for the other person. A spoiled, demanding child is not going to be liked or accepted by the world. In order to make them happy for a moment, their parents are setting them up for a lifetime of isolation and misery. And you are doing the same thing to yourself when you prioritize what you want in the moment over what the future you would have wanted for the long haul. That doesn't mean that you need to whip yourself into compliance any more than you would use that tactic to raise a child. But you should be a truly loving influence that encourages yourself to do the right thing and to make good choices that improve your own quality of life. If parents get this lesson wrong, a mother can easily end up at the beck and call of a demanding 3-year-old. And you can also end up living as a slave to your own emotional whims and tantrums if you're not careful. But your toddler isn't a little God emperor of the universe, and you should not teach them to think of themselves that way. That is the road to narcissism. You don't want to become a narcissist either. And just because you are the only person living inside your head, that doesn't make you the God emperor of your own universe either. If you allow yourself to act as though you are, life will continually knock you around, because none of us actually live in a vacuum. And when these potential wake-up calls occur, instead of recognizing that our own behavior caused these results, or at the very least, our mindset didn't align with reality, which caused us to get blindsided, it's easy to conclude that we just got disrespected and wronged. Then we continue to have expectations that are unreasonable, and our behavior grows even worse because of the chip on our shoulder. And this attitude sets us up to consistently experience more unpleasant collisions between our self-perception and the reality that surrounds us. A healthier approach for fostering success and happiness in your child's life is to practice the rule that you are not going to do for your child anything that the child can do for themselves, even if it would be easier for you to just do it for them. It is important to have appropriate expectations for children. That is the loving thing to do for them. Not doing that is taking something away from them. It is stealing the positive experience that they could be having. Even young children can learn to dress themselves, clean up their toys, and set the table. In fact, being encouraged to independently contribute teaches them that they can handle responsibility, and that makes them feel valuable. It's easier to step in and dress your child because it's faster. But when you do that, you are not letting them learn. You are robbing them of that opportunity to grow and mature and to feel good about themselves. You are limiting their independence and depriving them of experiencing dignity. It might be faster to dress your child yourself when they're 2. But do you still want to be dressing them when they're 7? Don't step in and let yourself off the hook for the responsibilities that you are actually capable of shouldering either. It's not self-love to stunt your own growth any more than it is love to do that to your child. You aren't doing yourself any favors if you trap yourself in this stage of life forever. You shouldn't browbeat yourself, but you should expect yourself to do the things that deep down you know that you are capable of doing. You may need to start small, but that is where everyone starts. The key is to start today. Do what you are capable of doing at this stage. Even if you feel that those triumphs are too little to celebrate or be proud of, you will experience pride in yourself for doing them anyway. A toddler feels pride when they get their head through the neck of their shirt instead of getting tangled up in the sleeve. And they should feel pride because that is progress. You will celebrate each step forward too, even the small ones. Most especially those first few difficult steps forward into a new, bigger world. And your ability to shoulder more impressive responsibilities and to overcome more daunting obstacles will grow out of your decision to start overcoming the small obstacles that are right in front of you right now. Love yourself enough to encourage yourself rather than taking the easy way out by giving in to your inner immaturity. The most effective way to boost a child's true self-esteem is to do all that you can do to facilitate successfully bringing the child into the realm of adult responsibility. There is nothing that gives a person more real self-esteem than to see that they are useful and necessary. But that is only true if it's real. You can't patronizingly BS a child for very long. And you won't succeed in doing it to yourself in the long run either. All human beings, the young and the grown, only value validation and praise when it is real, sincere, and deserved. To sum up this second lesson of motherhood, love your kids and care for them, but guard against gratifying behavior that will only turn them into narcissists. And when it comes to mothering yourself, love yourself, but with a love that is real and healthy. A love that makes you better, not worse. The proof is always in the pudding. So don't be afraid to adjust what you are doing based on the consistent results that you are getting. Let's switch gears now and consider the father's role. The first lesson of fatherhood is to become the man that your children want to imitate. Arthur Brooks puts it this way: if you want to teach virtue, practice virtue. Be the person that you want your kids to actually turn into. And generally speaking, they will become that person. Translation when it comes to trying to father yourself: fake it till you make it. Do the thing. Don't wait until you are a better person who has everything together. Just do the thing. That is how you become a better person. By deciding to act like a better person. A lot of men out there today find themselves stepping into the role of stepfather. So a lot of people find themselves asking the question, is a father something that you are? Or is it a role that you can successfully step into? Can you become a father simply by voluntarily choosing to take on that role? As a matter of fact, that is the only way you can truly become a father. Fatherhood is a relationship. To become a father, you have to choose to build that kind of relationship with your child. All relationships, paternal, romantic, friendships, they all have to be cultivated in order to make them develop and grow. Any one-on-one time that a father spends with his child, whether he is talking to them, teaching them, taking the time to listen to them, playing with them, or even just going on a walk with them, is a form of loving encouragement. And here is something else to keep in mind. Love only exists within a relationship. That's the only place where love can be experienced. You can't know love alone. So decide to have a real relationship with your child, and have a real relationship with yourself too. It is getting in your own way to assume that there is one specific path that leads to your being able to step into the shoes of a father. Just have a relationship with the kid. Like all relationships, your relationship with the child will unfold at its own speed. All fathers have to get to know their kid in order to be a real father. And you get to know somebody by spending time with them. You have to talk to a 2-year-old about things that a 2-year-old can understand, but you can still have a genuine conversation with them. Even a simple conversation means something if it involves a genuine connection between two people. That's communication. And you can build on that across a lifetime. Just because children know less about the world due to their lack of experience, that doesn't mean that they aren't paying attention and taking everything in. And it certainly doesn't mean that they're stupid, because they're not. And they are watching everything that you do. So honestly engage with them. We need to invest in ourselves as well. We need to know ourselves in order to be able to build a relationship with ourselves. We need to take the time to understand ourselves, listen to ourselves, teach ourselves, and enjoy ourselves. We all should want to get to a place where we truly like spending time with ourselves, because there is no person in your life that you're going to spend more time with than you. So if that relationship is a bad one, then you are unlikely to truly be happy, no matter how many other positive things you have going for you in your life. And no relationship with another person is going to fix a bad relationship with yourself. Your children need to see you model how to be an engaged adult in order for them to learn how to be a thriving adult themselves. So how does a father do that for his children? A father should act out an honest and committed pursuit of a worthwhile goal for his children. He should teach them by example how to develop a vision for themselves and commit to the pursuit of that vision. He should demonstrate sincere resilience in the face of failure. He should display faith in the future based on the worthiness of his goals. And he should model a life that involves service to his family and to his community. And if you didn't have someone to model those things for you when you were a child, then I'm sure that at the very least you had plenty of models for what you didn't want to become and the places that you didn't want to end up. The key is to put some deliberate thought into life. Establish an honest and worthwhile vision for yourself and commit to consistently inching forward towards it. Don't be grandiose in the beginning, because that is not being honest. Start with the obtainable and actually succeed in obtaining it before you shoot for the stars. Once again, just do the thing. Don't try to get motivated first. Do. Fake it until you make it. And then go out and make it some more. Pursue the life that you want to lead. The masculine role of the father should provide a source of protection against the catastrophes of life. The father's role exists to provide care for those who are more vulnerable. And this is a responsibility that the father assumes voluntarily. You're not really fulfilling all that it means to be a father without stepping into that breach. That is why the shepherd is used as a consistent model for masculinity in biblical stories. Shepherds keep the wolves and the lions at bay. They care for and protect the most vulnerable. That is what men who are worthy of the name strive to be. Even King David started out as a shepherd boy, and before he defeated Goliath, he saved his lambs from lions and bears. You need to be a safe person for yourself, and part of being a safe person is being a capable person. Another part of that is being an empathetic person who both sees and cares about the vulnerabilities of those under their protection. At times, you will need to stand in the gap and shield the more vulnerable parts of yourself from the things that they can't handle yet. You will need to have your own back, and when needed, be able to reassure yourself that I've got you. You're okay. It requires experience and a still inner sanctuary where you can cut through the turbulence of life and actually hear your healthy instincts for you to be able to successfully strike this balance between knowing when this role is needed and when it is more appropriate to step into the role of the mother, who is that temporary island of security when she's needed, while also fostering independence and encouraging resilience in her children. Part of striking that balance is realizing that while a father is a source of protection, a father should also model the spirit of voluntary adventure for those he is protecting. To sum up the first lesson of fatherhood, there is very little that you can do as a man that could ever be more important than for you to provide the model of how to live a responsible and adventurous adult life for your children. And there is very little that you can do for yourself when it comes to succeeding and creating a better life for you to enjoy living than to step up and take a chance, even a small one, as long as you actually act. Good things will follow. The second lesson of fatherhood is to embrace responsibility and you gain purpose. Psychologically speaking, there is no meaningful difference between being narrowly focused in on yourself and experiencing misery. Now that is a real dilemma in today's world, where we focus on ourselves more than we have ever done before in the history of mankind. Unfortunately, the answer to that dilemma isn't to just force yourself to stop being self-conscious, because that is not something that you can actually control. It's like telling you not to think about an elephant. Now you're thinking about an elephant. Trying to muscle your way into not being self-conscious only draws more of your focus onto yourself. The answer to the modern dilemma of focusing on ourselves too much is to embrace the simple reality that meaning in your life is going to be found by adopting a healthy amount of responsibility. You will find meaning, which is the route to happiness, by taking on healthy responsibilities towards other people and by being responsible for the future, your future. And that's the way it is. Shouldering those loads makes you feel productive and useful, which makes you feel valuable and good about yourself. It also provides you with a sustaining sense of meaning that helps you manage difficult times when they arise, and they will. That is inevitable. But once again, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But we have become a society that is very much afraid of responsibility. And unfortunately, that means that we are also afraid to be happy. Many potential fathers worry that the responsibility of fatherhood will be too much for them. They are fearful that they will feel suffocated and trapped. They fret that they are permanently forfeiting their own freedom. The key to overcoming those vague fears is to get specific. What exactly would they be losing? They are giving up their freedom to do what exactly? The freedom to be self-centered, meaning miserable. The freedom to be empty and alone? Does that sound like anyone's idea of freedom? Alex Hormozi pointed out that a lot of people today seem to conflate the idea of having freedom with the idea of not having to meet any expectations. But if you were alone on a desert island, you wouldn't have to live up to anyone's expectations. You also wouldn't really be free. You'd be stuck. That existence isn't happiness. That experience isn't one that we would describe as freedom. After all, the phrase is trapped on a desert island. An empty calendar may equal no responsibilities, but it doesn't equal a happy existence. Our concept of freedom is imprecise. What we actually want in life is options, not freedom. And there are no options to be found on a desert island or in an empty life. Yes, responsibility has its costs. There is certainly a price attached to being responsible for a child, but they pay you back 100 times over. Is there any offer to join a business venture that had returns on it like that you would turn down? Data actually shows that people who have little kids take more pleasure in the things they do with their kids than the amount of pleasure that single people experience while doing the exact same activity. The sheer amount of life inside kids is infectious. Children look at the world through fresh eyes. Everything that you do with a young child is brand new for that child. You get to re-experience the world as they see it by having a real relationship with them. And that's a priceless gift. The more you invest in them, the greater your returns will be. You can easily become a master of going out on little adventures with your children, and deciding to do that is something that will add joy to your own experience of life. If done in the right spirit, teaching your kid to ride a bike, or to fish, or swim, can be an adventure. Taking them camping, or to the zoo, or even to a movie, can be an experience that expands your own capacity to experience happiness. If you learn how to do it right, there won't be anything that you'd rather be doing. It's pretty rare for an adult to be as much of a joy to be with as a well-behaved child who is playfully accompanying you as you explore the world together. To sum up the second lesson of fatherhood, you are giving up what is often nothing more than an empty, juvenile hedonism in order to pursue something of much greater significance and with a much greater return on your investment. That something is the meaning that you will find in the voluntary adoption of responsibility. Jordan wrapped up his first parenting episode with a simple homework assignment. He encouraged everyone to write about 3 things that your father did well. Then write about 3 things that your mother did particularly well. Now write about 3 things that your father could have done better, and 3 things that your mother could have done better. Finish the assignment by writing about how you could capitalize on the 6 positive things that they modeled for you, and then write about how you could rectify the 6 negative things that they modeled for you in order to make the outcomes more optimal for yourself. This seems like a great assignment whether you are parenting someone else or trying to reparent yourself. We will be continuing this series by taking a look at the other episodes in Jordan's parenting series, which includes episodes on toddlers and teenagers, teaching resilience, as well as dealing with bullying and peer pressure. I hope you're as anxious to see what other insights we can unearth together as I am. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click like and follow because that is what does the trick in making these things successful. And please come back next week. Until then, have a good week, my friends.